All right, so Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. First of all, let's get the book. First of all, I think the book club is awesome. Like the Art of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo, that was amazing, and there's a really good book choice. A lot of people cleaned up their living areas, and it just like hit at the right time too. Coincidentally, with that Netflix thing, I didn't even know that Netflix was going to do that whole thing. Someone showed it to me like in the middle of December, in the middle of our book club. So the fact that that was actually happening while we did the Art of Tidying Up is really cool, because I feel like people could also watch the Netflix series. So at least a dozen people were cleaned up their space or were just like better off. And the magic of tidying up kind of kicked us off for this book club. And then in January, I wanted to do a book that was really kick it off in the new year. So the first book that I thought about was probably one of the best self-development books I've ever read, which is like kind of crazy, because for anybody that like knows my history on this, I've read over 700 of these books. It's probably a lot more by now. 700 was the number that I clocked in pre-Dignitas. So that was like way before Dignitas. I had over 700 of these read. This one is probably one of the best books I've ever read, The Untethered Soul, but it's also a little bit memey. It's a kind of like book that I think is a lot of like introspection and is a sort of collection of experiences that I don't think that everyone will identify with. So I was like, okay, well, how do we do a book that everybody in the new year can get after, and is a book that will also give people something to take away from, which is sort of my idea when I'm choosing any books for the book club. I want to get books that somebody can take something away from. And Can't Hurt Me, this book is that book. There is no better book that we could have chosen for January 2019. This book is insanely good on so many levels, because it covers so many things that I think are so important about living as a human being. Okay, so let's cover like what this book is basically about. David Goggins was a guy who grew up in a poor neighborhood in Indiana, and he was raised by a father who was essentially like a gangster. The father ran a roller skating rink where he laundered money, pimped out girls, and he basically enslaved this much younger woman to be his wife and do everything for her. And he had his kids, which was David and his brother, working in the roller skate rink at a very young age for really long hours. He regularly beat David, and the book goes into that. David also had problems in school. He had a lot of emotional issues. It was a really, really tough upbringing that I think would challenge anybody's idea of like a very hard upbringing. And so he goes through this in Indiana, and he has dreams of joining the military, but he's massively overweight. You can see it, and we're going to pull up his Instagram. You can see it in some of his pictures, where he shows these like before pictures. So I don't know how far back they are. So here's a really good one. So this is legit David Goggins back then. This is pre military. And he was cleaning carpets, and he was going into like restaurants trying to get rid of cockroaches. Like, well, that was what his job was. And so he had dreams to join the military, but he just couldn't get after it. And he found something in himself to try to join the Navy, because he saw a program, actually, and I think it was this program on YouTube. There's a really cool program of like Bud's Class, and they cover like the whole thing that they did. I don't know if this one's it. This is probably it. This is actually worth the watch if you ever like have the time and you want to go like into like the shadow realm of YouTube. Bud's Class 234 full HQ documentary. This was uploaded pretty recently. This is a crazy trip through the Navy SEALs, and just like what they have to go through, and what it takes. And so he watched this on like the Discovery Channel, and like this guy like working to like clean up cockroaches in hotels and restaurants. He watched this on Discovery Channel. It's like, I'm going to become a Navy SEAL. He's like, I'm going to do it. All right. So, and he decides to do it. So he goes into the Navy SEAL recruiter's office, or the Navy office, and they laugh him out of the place, right? They're like, dude, come on. Like, there's no way you're going to be a Navy SEAL. This is not going to happen. One of the overarching things that happens in this book is that he's pretty often prejudiced for being African American, because there's very few Navy SEALs that are African American. I think he was only the 30th person to graduate ever, or 35th person to graduate ever as a Navy SEAL. So the guy is like, okay, so what would I have to do to become a Navy SEAL? They say, well, you got to lose 100 pounds in 3 months to just even qualify. So he does. he loses 100 pounds in 3 months. He starts, and it's an incredible story of how he does it. He starts by just walking, because he can't run, because he's too fat to run. And he starts walking, and he can only walk a little bit. And then he like comes back, he fails, and he comes back, and he has to drink down a chocolate milkshake because he's so depressed. So he just gets up and does it again, keeps doing it. And eventually he's running. And then he's running more, and he's running more and more. And sure enough, he qualifies for the Navy SEALs. And he goes into Bud's class. So, Buds, Nervosa, thank you very much for the 155. Really, dude, Nervosa is so cool. Please clap it up in chat for that. Thank you so much. Since we're in the middle of a book club thing, I can't talk about it too much, but I hope you know I'm really grateful. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate that. So, for those of you just joining, we are discussing Can't Hurt Me for our January book club. So, this guy, being massively overweight, like looking like this, right? Like hating his life, cleaning up cockroaches, the dirtiest stuff ever. He goes into Buds. And Buds is no joke. This is maybe some of the hardest training out of any military in the world. The Navy SEALs are regarded as one of the best communities of soldiers ever in existence. The stuff they have to do is insane over a 6 to 9 month course, where they're doing cold water training. They're doing like all sorts of like staying up for all this time, like getting hypothermia, getting hosed down while doing push-ups, just crazy stuff. I mean, it's insane how hard this is. Okay, but it all culminates in this thing called Hell Week, and Hell Week is this 7-day long session where you don't sleep and you train the entire time. And there's a massive amount of people that get out during Hell Week. So it's something like maybe 80% of the class drops. You might start with like 140 students, and you'll end up with like 20 or 30 after Hell Week. They'll all quit, because that's the only way you get out, is that you quit. You have to go and you have to ring a bell. And once you ring a bell, you're out. And like the instructors are always telling you, like, hey, like if you want to be warm, you can put some blankets on, you go home to your wife, whatever, like go enjoy yourself. You don't have to be through this. Like, don't do this. Like, why are you doing this? Like, why should this happen? And you're constantly sort of like taunted to get out of Hell Week and go home. And so going through this is unbelievably difficult. It's unimaginably difficult. It's more difficult than anything that most of us can even conceive doing. David Goggins has to do this, but he gets injured, which happens a lot in Buds. So if you quit, you're out. You can never rejoin again. If you're injured, then you can get what's called rolled back, which means you go into the next class like 6 months later. So David Goggins gets rolled back on his first Hell Week. He gets like double pneumonia, stress fractures, and broken legs. I think is the first thing. He's running, and he's still doing it. He's still like running 10 miles a day on 2 broken legs that he just straps into his boots and runs around. This guy is like completely bananas. And I'm skipping over so much in this summary of like the mindset that it took to do this. And he outlines all that. He like outlines all of the mindset that it took to do this and like what he was thinking about. So this guy is like rolled back from Hell Week, so he's got to go in again. He got to go in a second time to Hell Week, right? Like most people, they can't even do this like the first time, and so he goes into Hell Week again. This guy goes into Hell Week again, right? He's dealing with this a second time. And sure enough, he gets rolled back a second time. So he gets injured again in his second Hell Week. And the Navy goes, okay, dude, like you can come back a third time because you got injured, but that's it. That's going to be your last time. You can't go through Hell Week again after that. So this dude goes into Hell Week a third time. He goes into Buds a third time, okay? Like, he goes through 3 Hell Weeks. Like, and, okay. And so, like, passes it. He makes it through his third one and joins the Navy SEALs, top of his class, and becomes honored enlistman. So it's just super big honors, like, whole thing. And becomes one of the best operators that the Navy SEALs have ever known. But he doesn't stop there. He then goes and decides that while being a Navy SEAL, he basically his entire goal is to train his mind to be hard. He wants to be a harder individual. And he's constantly trying to aspire to these things. So he decides to get into ultra marathoning. So ultra marathoning is no joke, all right? So like the big thing that he did in the first half of the book is the Blackwater Ultra Marathon, which is a 150-mile run through the Black Desert. Badwater. Sorry, not Blackwater. Badwater. 135-mile course in California Death Valley, right? One of the hottest and worst places in the world. So Goggins will talk about this and other things that he does. But he becomes an ultra marathon runner while operating in the Navy SEALs, and also does like all of these insane things. The second part of the book has a lot more accomplishments of what he does once he gets out of the SEALs. And in general, this is just the story of a person who, through unbelievable great difficulty, got through some of the craziest things I've ever seen. And in the first part of the book, yeah, he had to run 100 miles just to qualify, and he had never done that before. So this is just a crazy book. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of like who Goggins is, and then I'm gonna key up a important couple discussion points that I wrote down for this discussion, and these are kind of like, this is kind of going to be a cool section, I think, because this is like getting into my own personal philosophy about this that I don't get to talk about a lot, and I especially don't talk about that much now that we have moved more to being a gaming stream, which is overall good. It's good that we do gaming because that's like how people are really going to identify with the stream, and but I do have these like opinions, and I do have this view on life that I really want to talk about every here and there. I think this is a good opportunity to do it. So, let's go. So throughout this entire book, first of all, like this dude lived a harder life than like pretty much anyone that I've ever read about or can imagine. And throughout the entire thing, he takes personal accountability for everything that he does. So the first thing that he talks about as like an exercise that he's done is he talks about this accountability mirror that he has. So this accountability mirror is this mirror that it's a physical mirror in his bathroom that he puts Post-it notes on. And they say things like, are you getting after it? Are you doing the thing that you want to do? Are you doing the goals that you want to do? And I thought this was such a really cool idea. Everything I'm going to say in the next like 10 minutes before I open this up to discussion is about one concept. And I hope I shake some people up here, or I hope I make a few people pissed off, because this has bothered me for a really long time. But just in general, I think that society and like everybody it is way too soft these days. We are unbelievably we're pussies. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's disgusting. It's disgusting how much of I am too of this, right? But I think like whatever has happened, I don't know why this has happened. But we've gotten to the point where we victimize ourselves for everything. it's always something else that's affecting us, or it's always some kind of problem like outside of ourselves that we can't affect, or this hurts and you're going to quit doing this. And maybe it's because we're enabled so easily to quit things that, and there are so many support structures for people who do quit things. But just in general, the vast majority of people, and I view myself in this category, so I'm not speaking as like one of them or some elite person. I'm not that at all. I'm struggling with like, eating too many cookies after dinner and stuff. I have like all these problems. But the vast majority of people are just way too soft, crazy soft, and they don't take accountability or ownership for what they do, and particularly the mistakes they make. This book is the embodiment of that. Throughout the entire thing, David never gives in to blaming something or someone else for his problems. He always self-identifies that every day it's going to be hard. And more importantly, it's going to be self-imposed hardship, because life is so easy and it's such a gentle roller coaster that if you don't self-impose hardship, you won't be ready for like the inevitable downturns when life gets hard. And so everything about Can't Hurt Me is about hardening your mind. And even if you don't need to, I don't think anybody needs to go out and run an ultra marathon to do this. But I think to impose a little bit of discomfort into your life every day to do something that is difficult or is something that is going to take you to a little bit higher of a level will help everybody who reads this book or listens to this book club a lot. Because when life is so easy and we're kind of in a vacuum, life will inevitably downturn at some point, and it will get real hard. It'll either be that someone dies, it'll either be that you undergo some kind of like health problem, or your friends do. You lose a relationship, you lose a life. Your job doesn't go well. Something is going to happen where life kind of imposes this difficulty on you. And if you've lived a really easy life, then you will, when you encounter the dragon, get eaten. You're gonna lose a lot more than if you had calloused your mind and trained yourself by being uncomfortable and by doing things that are difficult, whether they be physical or mental or emotional. That the average person who takes on this practice, every person that takes on this practice, will be much more prepared for those inevitable downturns in life. So people in our world today are very complacent. At least in the first world, at least in America, where in my microcosm. And the way that Goggins channels this mastering of your mind, which is, in the subtext of the book, is physical training. He goes through the hardest physical training in the world, not because he wants to be strong or athletic or prove some kind of point, but because he wants to harden his mind against these inevitable hardships, and because he wants to aspire to be the greatest person he can be. Or, as he puts it in the book over and over again, and I love this, this is something I've been thinking about constantly, being uncommon. How do you be uncommon? What are other people not doing, and how do I do that? And then he takes that a step forward, and he says, not only just being uncommon, but being uncommon among uncommon people. So, out of all the people that are rare and the people that are doing things that are exceptional, how do I even be exceptional among those people? And since I started reading this book, I have tried to be uncommon among uncommon people. So it's uncommon to be an executive in my case, right? And it's, I guess it's also uncommon to do some of the things that I do. It's uncommon to do hot yoga every day. It's uncommon to do competitive dance. It's uncommon to run businesses at the level that I do. But how can I even step that up and be uncommon around those uncommon people in a group of executives and step up even further? The one thing this book has taught me is that anything that I ever thought about me being like actualized or getting after it or working hard is completely wrong. And I think about it. I thought about this book and I thought about every day I walk to work, and I usually get up and I'm late for my stream because it's hard. Because I work at Nerd Fusion full time and then I run the broadcast full time. I usually get home at like 7 or 8 p.m. and I don't really want to go to bed and just shut everything off. I could like some time to just like relax a little bit or see Chen, my girlfriend, or whatever. And I want to push that a little bit. So I push it. I'll go to bed a little bit later. I'll be tired when I wake up, get a few minutes extra sleep, cue like walking to work, getting here a little bit late, right? And in January, I realized like there's no reason why I can't do that differently, and like why I can't push that down to like getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning and actually making that happen. The being uncommon thing, it affects me every day because I walk to work. I have a 20-minute walk where I listen to this audiobook. And then I get here and there's Matt, right? Matt's at work. My partner, Sevidus. He's at work and he's been here since 5 in the morning. He opens the door every morning, right? There's Giant Waffle. Giant Waffle's on time for his stream every day at 8 a.m. There's Dan's Gaming. Dan's Gaming is on time for his stream every day at 9 a.m. When I walk in, they're already at work. When I walk out, they're still streaming. So being a part of that environment, it combined with, I think, Can't Hurt Me, is a huge part of why I'm getting super inspired to just do way more. And the last thing I'll do before I open up the discussion is I'll talk about this. What do I mean by way more? So David Goggins has this thing called the 40% rule. The 40% rule is a rule where if you think you're giving 100% of your effort and you've given everything you can to something, like let's say you're on a run and you think you can do 3 miles. And at mile 3, you're just done. Like, you're just, like, completely down and out. You're screwed. You're actually at 40%. And you have 60% left to give. So I think that most of us would probably be happy if we were even giving that amount. You know? Like, at least that's the way that I look at it myself. That, like, I think I'm barely giving 40% in most things. What would it actually look like to give 100% of your real effort to something? And are we all afraid to do that? Because giving 100% of your effort means if you fail, you have nothing to fall back on. That's a really cool thought. It affected me in the beginning of January. I mentioned this working schedule, right? And so I am working a lot of hours. I'm probably working 70 or 80 hours a week, legit, maybe more. But when I would get home, I just want to shut off. And, I wouldn't want to talk to Chen, or I wouldn't want to do anything. And then I was like, why am I like this? Why is this actually happening? Am I really giving it everything? Am I really stepping it up? And I decided no, when I get home and be positive and productive, I'm going to do it. So you can think about things that in your life you're giving only 40% to, even though you think that, or even 10%, or even 5%. And that if you give a little bit more in those areas, it might be amazing for what it does to you. So I'm going to open up the discussion in the book club. I'm going to give the option for everybody to talk. And if it's a shit show, then I'll just do it individually. There's not a lot of people in here right now. So they should be able to unmute now. People can unmute if they want to talk. Let me see. I don't know. Maybe. They'll tell me in chat if they can't. Can't unmute, they say. Okay. Why would that be? Let's see. Can I unmute them? Timber John, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it a lot. Hope you're getting a lot out of this discussion. Okay. Let me mess with this. Edit channel. Permissions. So I turned on speak. Maybe you guys should try rejoining the chat. And you may be able to do it.
Yeah,
now.
that works.
Yep. Yeah. Try rejoining, and then we should be here.
All right.
Okay.
Hi, what's up, guys?
Hi.
Hey.
So you guys are book club people. You guys have read the first half of the book.
Hell yeah.
Very good. Yeah. So I'm super curious as to what your thoughts are, or what you guys want to talk about, or anything really.
Yeah, I was actually kind of curious about talking about the challenges. I just wanted to know if anybody did those, if they took them in, if they implemented anything, and what impact it's had so far.
Let's see if I can find those, because I want to.
I have a list of the first 6. If I can.
Oh, can you link me it? Or link it in general?
I just have them in a note.
Can you just copy me?
Someone posted the entire 10, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I posted the entire thing.
Oh yeah.
If you look in January book club.
Okay.
It's a Reddit.
I
link.
put it in chat.
Okay, I see. Okay, so the one that I talked about a little bit was the accountability mirror. I think this is like the coolest idea, and like out of the first 6. This one is really awesome. The idea that you can just have I think having reminders of like your expectations of yourself is super duper important. And like one of the things that I do, or I have done for a long time, is I'll always have a list of monthly goals that I want to achieve, and I'll usually have 3 major goals that I want to achieve that'll either be career oriented, physically oriented, or something else. And I'll always print that out, and I'll have it next to my desk at my work, and also on my refrigerator at home, so I see it all the time. So this like kind of reminds me of that. Is this like accountability mirror idea?
Yeah, it's just like.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just like you hear the advice often where you start a bullet journal or something like that, where you just put a bunch of goals in it. But a common complaint, like I know it happened to me when I made one a few months ago. I wrote it down. I started checking stuff off for a week or 2, and then it just ended up sitting in my desk. And then I found it a few months later. And it's like, oh, I did some of these things, and I just completely forgot about the journal. So I mean, having it visible every day on your desk or your wall is, I don't know, worth trying out, I suppose.
Yeah, there was a study done at a university. I'm trying to remember, but it was it showed that like if you did nothing else but actually just write down your goals and then put them on a piece of paper and forget about it, you're like 10% more likely to do them. It was super interesting.
That's one thing that came to mind when I heard about the concept first time. He says that it is not enough to put it on an electronic device, like if you jot it down on your phone. Yeah. Because you'll just forget about it. You're not going to look at it. But if you have it on the mirror, like every time you walk into the bathroom or wherever your mirror is, when you walk out, you're going to see it. And no, I don't have a huge mirror, so I couldn't do that. But I have a whiteboard in my room, and where I put it all down in like weekly, monthly, and daily. And that's more for like goals and tasks that I have to do. While he goes more towards like also things that you don't like about yourself that you want to change, and that's not really like a tangible task that you can directly attack, but like just as a reminder over time, this is what you're working on, right? Don't forget about it.
Yeah, for sure. Whiteboards are amazing. We have them all around the office, and then also like I have like a big one at home, and always write whatever like practice that I'm doing on it for the month. Whiteboards are like super important.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Really, really handy to do.
Yeah, anything that keeps you constant. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying I'm lucky enough that I'm doing this. We're both, me and my girlfriend are both reading the book, so we can hold each other accountable. We set up a calendar that we filled out that has kind of scheduled out what we're doing each day, and we have a whole system around like if we do it, we get points. If we don't do it, we lose points, and we can use those points for different things. So it's an extra step in kind of holding us accountable to actually doing what we say we're gonna.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really actually amazing. So like, what kind of things you've been doing? Like that sounds so cool.
So yeah, I mean, we started actually in January. We started it for the first of the month before reading about the accountability calendar, which was kind of funny, but just personal goals. So as an example, like exercising a couple times a week, or reading every single day, or starting to code, or she's a dancer, so she's going to dance classes. So every time we do one, we'd add a point. And usually, right now, our reward is we usually cook every night, but we'll eat out once a week about. So if we get 15 points, we spend those points and we can eat out. If we don't get 15 points, we can't eat out. Like, we just are not allowed to. So, you know, making sure that we're keeping to our schedule and doing our tasks so we're not letting the other person down as well. Cause, you know, sometimes you have those nights where you don't want to cook, you don't want to do anything. You just want to order some food. And that sucks to let someone else down and not be able to do that.
That's really cool.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, that's actually
that you have
so cool
to share that with you. Because like oftentimes I was talking to friends about this book and about like certain concepts that are in this book, and it's really hard for them to kind of grasp why you would do that, right? And it's like, I don't know, you talk about him getting up super early because he goes to the gym at like 5 a.m, and at 7 a.m. he's already calling people up, and they're like, dude, why are you calling me at this time of the day? Like, are you insane? And he's like, not even realizing that it's not, the regular person is not that way. Like, they would never get up at that time. Why would they, right? And you talk to some people and they're also like more towards that side, is like, why would you get up that early? Can't you do it at some other time?
Yeah, it seems to be that the overarching theme of a lot of people that are successful that I've always read about, or that I've just met even too at this point, all get up super early. That's one of those. It's really a challenge because it's basically one of the most difficult things for gamers that I think there is. It's like, like at least like personally, right? Like I'm still struggling with it. Just to, like, it's one of the reasons that I set the stream time at 9 a.m. was so that I could, like, I absolutely would have to be accountable to something to get up really early. And I watch Matt. Matt streams every day at 6, so he's streaming 4 hours before I get here. Right. And then he usually leaves the same time I do, around 7 p.m. So like it's possible. You just have to be, I don't know. Like, everything kind of centers around that. Right. It's like, there's a thing to be said for like, and I just saw it in chat. It's like this self-help narrative, which is like where it's like, you know, you can do anything if you set your mind to it, sort of BS. But that is not this book. This book is a legitimate person who trained through this and then provides his personal account, and you sort of draw your own conclusions based on what you get out of it by viewing him. And like, for me, like, when I am reading this book, the takeaway that I get is like, I'm just not, anything that I think is a limitation of mine. Like, because he says, does he say this in the first part of the book? I think he does, where he says a lot of people most people just won't change, but a lot of people that will change, they'll change some actions, but very few people will change the underlying thinking of like how they actually think about things, right? So if he doesn't, like, if you don't change your thinking about things, you self-impose these limitations without realizing it. Like a good example of this was like when I get really tired from working at Nerd Fusion and streaming every day, and I get home so late, like, it was almost a foregone conclusion. It's like, well, I'm tired, I deserve to be shitty, right? I deserve to be kind of like a dick, and just sort of like either be enclose myself because I've had a rough day, right? Like I should be like that. Well, why? Like what set that up to be like that? Why can't I push that harder to be an even better person when I show up, be happy for everybody, and even be more productive? And then I just did that because it was like Goggins constantly shows me through this book that I'm just not as much. I'm not doing as much as I think. I think of myself as a lot less than what I could be.
Yeah, I think it also speaks a lot to the environment you put yourself in, as you mentioned, as it's mentioned in this book, and also the people you surround yourself with. I highly recommend that if you can read these books or do any of these activities with another person, whether it be a good friend, a coworker, or a significant other, do it, because like having someone else to hold yourself accountable, but also just to talk about these concepts with is invaluable. And you can see that Goggins tries to get out of toxic environments. He tries to separate himself from these like toxic people, when he goes over his high school days and he goes over his younger years, so that he can focus on himself and he can focus on his goals and making it who he wants to be.
Yeah, he actually removes some people from his life that are just not, well, I mean, ultimately he kind of does that with his dad, right? And that was probably
Yeah.
the big, I think that he didn't really say that, but that was sort of one of the biggest takeaways from the first half of the book was like, he removes these people who are just negatives to his life and are bringing him down. And I think it's such a good point because I actually see, there's a person that's really close to me in my life that I can't like really talk about like on live, but he constantly associates himself with like just people that are into drugs or people that are kind of into that narrative, and it pulls him down a lot. Like it really does. Like it pulls him down a ton. And like there's a Tony Robbins quote: "It's proximity is power." Like the people that you surround yourself with are super important. So it's interesting that Goggins like constantly sort of like creates his. Actually, he even does that in the SEALs a bit. Like he starts like associating with people who just like 100% want to get after it. And I think you're starting to see it in the first half of the book where he's starting to realize that like even among Navy SEALs, there's like that complacency and laziness, which is just wild to me. It's just so crazy that's the case.
One of the lines that killed me is when he was doing his 100-mile run and he was talking about how out of shape and how bad his physical fitness was. And he's like, yeah, I can only run 50 miles right now. I'm so out of shape. And I'm just sitting here like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he literally, in the first half of the book, he literally runs an 100-mile race with no preparation. And it almost kills him. Right? Like he comes very close to just dying, like outright just dying. Like,
kidney failure.
Yeah. Like I don't remember what the condition is, but like if you work out so much, like your body can just go into like full renal failure.
Yeah, that was during the push-up or the pull-up thing.
Yeah, that's later in the book though. That's like he doesn't. Does he die from that?
I haven't seen that one.
He doesn't actually like almost die from that, but he gets like really messed up. Yeah, that's the second part of the book. But in the first part of the book, he tries to do the 100-mile run, and he I think like it was really descriptive what happens. Like he
shits himself a little bit.
He shits himself. Blood. He's pissing blood. He's running while shitting himself while pissing blood. Yeah, it's like. And it's all volunteer, right? He's doing all this just because he like wants to push himself further. And so like one thing that I wanted to definitely say, and this is in my show notes, is like I don't think that anyone that's reading this book should take away they need to be like an ultra marathoner. They need to go as hard as David goes. Like David goes that hard to set the example, but there's two things that he says that I think are really important in the first half of the book. Number one is that like. It's actually not that much if you choose to improve something and you want to get better at it and you just do that thing. You don't have to like reform your entire life or all of your bad habits or give it all up. You can just do something that takes you to that next level in that one area. And if you have a singular focus, that becomes a superpower. Because one of the things he talks about is like for whatever reason we've all become like multitaskers. So all of us are focusing on doing a bunch of things at once. Like instead of like, you're not just like working, you're reading Reddit, and like you're watching something else on TV or like something else is going on the other screen. Like you're not just like singular focused on the thing that you're doing. And this is another thing that I got from the book is that if you try to do something with a singular focus and you just like write down what that thing is going to be, you can get a really crazy amount done in a short amount of time, and you can jerk off for the rest of it, and it's going to be fine. It's really crazy how just like a little bit more focus, singular focus like that is makes you better.
Yeah, and like even I mean, he says that the small things matter a lot for you and for your development, and those are the cookies that you can put in your jar, and whenever you need power you go back to that jar and you pull them out. And it's like this entire book is full of just quotes that you can print on like shirts and freaking cups and whatever not. But like there's one that I wrote down that really did it for me. It's like it's the small sparks that start small fires that eventually build enough heat to burn down the whole fucking forest. So it's like, you know,
that's amazing.
That's just so badass, but it has so much meaning in it that you can pull out of it.
Totally, man.
It all goes back to that second win thing, and like 40% is what most people believe your 100% to be. Because the stuff he does in the book if most people will just follow it straight up, then he'll just end up leading to a bunch of people dying from overexertion. The point is to make out that your body is capable of so much more than what you think that your maximum is capable of. So even if you push yourself to your max, to what you think your max is, you still have way more room beyond that. He's just trying to point out that push yourself to there at least, or even if you can't, don't give up before you get there, just because you think that's a limit, because it's often just a mental limit.
Totally, yeah.
Right.
And like when when you're there, you like if you think you're there, you're probably not there. And I think one of the coolest parts of the book that you just mentioned was like when he's in Bud's class. And okay, so there's a particular moment in Bud's class I'm now remembering where the whole can't hurt boat crew 2 thing. You guys remember that? Yeah. So this is like so this is like day 5 of Hell Week or something, and it's like they've been up for 5 straight days. Everybody's just like just dogging through the exercises, and they've got to lift this giant boat that like it's a boat crew of like 6 people, right?
I think this is his second time, right, as well?
Yeah. So what's that?
Yeah. No, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So this is his second time, right? So it's his second time through Bud's. And they're just donezo. Like his whole boat crew is super tired. And this is when he comes up with that idea of the taking souls thing. Is this the same thing, I think?
It is.
Yeah, okay. So this is the same idea of the taking souls thing where he says, you know what? Like, basically fuck these instructors. Like, they're sitting there on their 8-hour shifts, drinking coffee, warm, right, in coats, like watching us freezing, lifting this boat. And they think they've got it made. And what they're doing is, since they're all Navy SEALs themselves, they're comparing us to them and saying, oh, when I was in Bud's, I was doing that so much better. So Goggins gets it in his head to convince his boat crew that they're just going to go hard. Like they're going to go hard. They're going to lift this boat super hard. They're going to yell, can't hurt boat crew 2 over and over again. And they're going to stare down the instructors. And they start doing this. And the instructors just like are all like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? Like, so like the idea being that like he's actually reaping the soul of his enemy. He's owning that person because he's renting the space in their head for free, right? Like it gets in their head, and when they go home that night, they're gonna think about it. This whole can't hurt Boku 2 thing, and the point was like when everybody else thought that they didn't have the energy to keep going on, they stepped it up and they did it again.
Yeah, and he takes it further than he needs to, right? It's not about just passing whatever is set as their task. It's like he's going that step further to mess with the instructor's head. So when he gets back home, he can't get it up. He can't have sex with his wife because he's still thinking about like this motherfucker was messing with me so hard. Like, how did he do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like he's not gonna go home and like get in his bed and be comfortable because he's just like staring at the ceiling like, how did this guy do this, right? Yeah. That was like so cool, the whole idea. So like Goggins has this like kind of balance, right? Like he has the cookie jar idea, which is like if you're running or you're doing something really difficult, you kind of reach in and you remember sort of like a positive thing that can reinforce your experience. But he also has this like really dark place that he goes when he's in these times of like difficulty, where he either like creates an enemy and like centralizes on that as the focus, or he goes into these like really crazy places where like in Bud's, the way he got through like the second and first time and maybe even the third time was just like, fuck these instructors. Like I'm just gonna go super hard. I'm gonna show everybody again, like that idea of like I'm gonna be uncommon among uncommon people that keeps showing up, and I absolutely love that idea.
Yeah, and he also manages to do this not just for himself, but in Bud's he gives his entire boat crew the second wind, right? What was it, by humming the Adagio for Strings theme from Platoon?
Yeah.
Just this entire song, like that he's just humming loudly, just gives his entire crew so much power to power through it.
Yeah, so he constantly, that's the other thing, is that's such an important point that I totally forgot, is like he constantly uplifts all the other people around him, right? So he's encouraging people not to quit. He's encouraging people through like singing these songs and getting everybody to sing songs. And he's also messing with the instructors by doing that too. So like the instructors have this thing they do called getting wet and sandy. I can probably find it in this YouTube video where you have to run into the water and it's Coronado Bay. So it's probably like 60 degrees and you can see like they're like shivering and you have to like lay in the water for long periods of time. So they'll run you back and forth and they'll do this over and over again. And so when they go into the water, he has them sing this like song from Platoon over and over again. Like here it is, yeah. Like they're just like laying in the water, super cold, and like everybody's like just drenched. Everybody's like super cold. They just run him back and forth. So like he's just getting his entire boat crew like pumped throughout the entire thing because of this. Here it is. Like they're screaming at these guys and like doing sit-ups and then jumping into the water. Then they got to run somewhere else. And like, it's just crazy, man. Like your entire like mental mindset just breaks down through this entire process. And the only thing you have is like your own like reason of like, why are you here? Like, why are you doing this? And I think with Goggins, like every physical challenge or mental challenge that he goes through in this book kind of brings him back to that one question that you have to answer, which is like, why am I doing this? And like, why am I here?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because it also kind of outlines the big difference between like his taking souls idea, right? Having an enemy in your mind, not antagonizing them, but kind of using them as a force, as opposed to, I think in the third time he did it, you had that, the guy in Buds who was actively antagonizing the other people. He was trying to get them to quit, but you can only feel yourself off that for so long before he ended up quitting too.
Yeah, he ended up being the person that couldn't handle it. Right, it was the people that actually like learned to work together and be a team that actually got through.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Overall, like I like to stay away. So like, especially like in the next, we have 11 more books of the year. Like we're just beginning 2019. So like, I want to stay away from things that are not like objectively actionable things. We're going to get a lot of people that like are going to say, okay, well, it's just like self-help, like nonfiction stuff, because there's sort of a stigma attached to it. The reason why I chose Goggins' book for this month is because this is a person that you can look at and you can draw your own conclusions from. He is motivational as hell. Like he does say, like, I think it was Slacks that said like, there's so many quotes in this book that you can just like take and print out. Right. Yeah. Like, yeah. And it's so true. But at the same time, like you're reading an actual account of a dude that has done some of the most difficult things in the world. And you're reading why he's done it. So like taking away, it's not like, some like Joel Osteen, like motivational speaker that like, like sits and like makes millions of dollars and like sits in a place and like tells you how to live your life. Like it's a dude that's like, here's what I did and here's why I thought about it. And I'm just going to write about that. And like you take away from it, like what you want. And that is like one of the reasons why I think Can't Hurt Me is such an awesome book.
There are no shortcuts.
Yeah. The only easy day was yesterday is the Big Seal quote, right?
For me, one of the things that really spoke to me was there is no finish line.
Oh, yeah.
I realized when I was spending time, when I was doing really well, I would eventually just crash and burn because I just didn't have the endurance to get through everything. But just that notion of there is no finish line. You aren't trying to get somewhere where you just sit around and play video games all day and feel somewhat okay about it. You're the enjoyment and fulfillment is in the process.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story actually. There's a guy that works at a really high level in one of the esports teams, and I can't say who it is or what, but I was talking to this dude, and we were having a conversation back and forth just about like what our goals were. And, I said, I'm kind of like, once I'm out of CLG, I'm going to like look for the next thing. And I'm going to like, keep trying to like push myself forward. I said, like, what do you want to do? And he told me, well, I'm only in esports because I'm waiting for the point where I can cash out, get some equity and basically just play video games for the rest of my life. Like, just like sit around and just play video games for the rest of my life and like and enjoy myself. And I was like, okay. And I saw that as like, that seems like pretty cool on the outside, but will you really be happy when you end up there? Because of that same thing that Zenon just said, which is like, when you think of life as like, I think that's so important. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's like a fundamental way that you can change your thinking right now is if you think that there's a stop to this, if you think it's ever going to end, and that one day you'll be where you need to be, and one day you'll have the money, or one day you'll have the relationship you want, one day you'll have the accomplishments you want, one day you'll be completely satisfied. Life like actually just doesn't work that way. There's like, whether it's like a physical law or whatever it is, there's actually no finish line. You're never ever going to be done. And when you start thinking of it like that, every day becomes a quest to be the best you can be in that moment, which is so important, because you're not waiting till a later time to do something. This has been a really important thing in my life, where realizing this, and I didn't like, I guess like I try to internalize it. I started to realize it at CLG when I was working a lot, because I was working like from 7 a.m. to usually like 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. Every day. And then I was getting up at 5 for yoga, and I was going to work again at 7. I'd take a break and a 1 hour break and lunch for jujitsu. I realized it was like, I was always thinking of things like, well, at some point I'll be happier. Like I'll be happier, like when I start working out, or I'll be happier when I eat better, or I'll be better off when I start meditating every day. And like, what I realized was, and this is true for the stream too, where I would be like, well, okay, like tomorrow will be I'm always striving to do improv comedy on the stream. So I'm always trying to make it a funny, like entertaining stream outside of these discussions, which are like really serious. But like, most of the time, like in our gameplay, that's what it is. I was like, okay, well, I'll do that better. I'll do that better like later. Like, no, like the only time you have to bring it is right now. Like this is it. And if there's no finish line, you're constantly aspiring to do that every second.
It's kind of like what Jordan Peterson talks about with the zone of proximal development, where you're always doing something that is not completely out of your wheelhouse, and it's also within your ability. It's within your ability to do it, and it's also not too easy, right? And when you're always in that, that's where like the meaning is, as he talks about it, and like 12 Rules for Life.
Yeah, Goggins has that same philosophy and the idea of progressive overload, right? He talks about. So every time you begin training, you put a little bit more work in than you did the last time. So if you ran like a mile the other day, you run like a mile, like very little progressive overload, but you make sure you do a little bit more every workout. And that's his sort of like take on like progressing like really quickly through anything. You do a little bit better the next time.
And what I really liked about the book was, although it is mainly about him and his training in the military, and that is a very physical activity, it's not just about physical stuff, right? When you watch motivational videos or whatever, like it pumps you up and it will get you through that workout or whatever you will need to do. But like for a lot of people in modern times, it's a lot about like mental stuff, right? There's a lot of thinking involved in your school or your work. And he still gives you hints as to how to get through that, because it's also adaptable onto your mental capacity and how you can deal with things that are not based on anything physical, right? Because he went through all of that. He had hardships in his life that have nothing to do with him struggling physically, but it was just all about getting through a tough situation and dealing with people that are toxic towards him and his environment. And that's really cool.
Yeah, it's not just a story about like the physical effort is how he channels it, but it's the mental effort and the mindset, I think, that is probably the most valuable thing about this book, particularly in the hardship before he ever even starts going through the like Navy SEAL stuff. He constantly has this mindset of like, again, I think it was like the first thing I talked about when I opened it up. It's like the idea that he's going to take personal accountability. And this might just be like a SEAL thing, because Jocko Willink in a book called Extreme Ownership is another one of these like really hardcore SEAL guys, like kind of public personalities. He talks about this a lot too, which is like this idea that it's like, there's essentially no reason to like every like to ever like victimize yourself. You don't need to blame your situation on like circumstance or environment or people. You can, or even if you do, you can take that and you can go further by like whether even if it was like totally external circumstances that happened to you, you can take it further by saying what could have I done better in that circumstance. It's really the only thing you can do.
Yeah, you take accountability for the action that you can do in that situation, like giving those circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really not important what happened. It's just important that it's better the next time.
Absolutely.
Also, another guy that gets up at freaking 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah. So Jocko, like if you look at his thing, his Instagram. Oh my God, dude. Because if you're following him, you'll see that picture of the watch come up every day. Every day he posts this watch picture of when he wakes up. So he wakes up, puts on his watch, takes a picture of it, uploads it to Instagram every day. Yeah, and it's just oh man, it's such a bad feeling when I wake up at like 10 or 11 and like I check my Instagram feed and there's Jocko with that freaking 4:30 watch, dude, every day.
He's been at it for 5 hours already.
Yep. Like, yeah, he's already been doing it. And it's even worse, right? Because I'm actually living that through Matt. Because, like, I get to the office and I'm, like, an hour late. It's, like, 10 a.m. And, like, everybody on the stream is, like, rightfully, like, late, like, angry face, like, what's going on? And then, like, Matt's already been there for 4 hours streaming. And I'm like, Waffle's already been there for, like, 3 or 4 hours streaming. I'm like, oh, my God. Like, these guys... it was particularly that in the 500 month for Waffle when he did or was it 400 hours he did? It was Ziz that did 500, right?
I think so, yeah.
Like, yeah, like, so it was an average of like 14 hours a day. Like, I remembered I ran into Waffle, I didn't get to talk to him at all that month. Like, I ran into him very briefly in the break room that we have. And I was like, man, like, how are you doing? And he's like, I'm pretty tired. And I'm like, well, like, what are you doing? Like, how's it going? And he's like, dude, I have to watch movies in 15-minute chunks because, like, right? Like, because he's like, I get home and I have to go to bed, so I can only watch 15 minutes of a movie and then I have to go to bed. And he's like, I've been watching the same fucking movie for 2 weeks. I was like, oh my God, this is just ridiculous. Like, this is like. It's so hard, dude. Like, when you get to that level of like, but again, like that's an example of a person who is uncommon among uncommon people, right? Like, being a broadcaster who is consistent is uncommon. That is not a thing that many broadcasters can do. Most broadcasters are not consistent. The ones that are consistent are not consistent at early times in the morning because most broadcasters that make full-time income know they can get away with it. So they'll get up at like 2 or 3 p.m. You know, they'll wake up like a little bit later and they'll start their streams. But it's like the early bird gets the worm is literally true on Twitch because the best time to stream, period, if you can do it, is start your stream at 6 a.m. and end your stream at 2 p.m. Because 6 a.m. is when the most amount of broadcasters are in bed and offline, but the most amount of viewers are there. You catch the whole European audience at 6 into the American workday towards the end of the workday at 2. So if you do manage to get up at 6 in the morning, you're going to do better than anybody. And if you're consistent, you'll kill it. So being uncommon, right, is being able to do that. But Waffle took it a step further. Being uncommon among uncommon people is doing like the 400-hour thing, and to see what that takes at that level is not. It's insanely inspiring, one, but it's also just insane to imagine.
That also matches up really well with the 40% number, because for most people, putting in those 7-8 hours 6 days a week, that's what they consider their full amount, and he's literally more than doubling.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's that whole thing, right? Is like, oh yeah, you think you're 40% in, and like Jocko, I think like embodies that too. Goggins embodies that, where it's like, it was like, I remember this. It was Christmas Day. Like, and you know, like a little bit less than a month ago, and I wake up and I check my Instagram feed and I still see a picture of Jocko's watch, and I'm like, this guy is like in a hotel. like giving a motivational speech the next day, like talking about his book, and he's doing like a workout in his hotel room. And like you just see these, like I have it up on the stream, but you just see these just sweat covered like bars
The
and
aftermath
like
pictures.
yeah, the dumbbells, like chalk, like this is being uncommon among uncommon people. And I think like even if you don't aspire to this level of dedication in whatever you do, man, you can use this kind of thing to get like 10 or 20% closer. This stuff is just so cool.
One thing that put me off of David Goggins hearing about it was that 100-mile race. And I just had like the 5-minute clip or this 5-minute video talking about how he did this 100-mile race with no training. It was like this guy like basically almost killed himself.
Yeah.
For what? And then, you know, that kind of put me off. But like knowing like the whole mindset behind it and just all the thought processes and him just wanting complete excellence. And that's his purpose in life. His purpose in life is just to see how far a human can go, you know? And that's really inspiring once you know all the backstory behind it and everything.
Yeah, totally.
I gotta
agree.
say, I was a little bit surprised that he did so little in terms of preparation for that run, because it's like you're a very physical guy. Like, yeah, if you've been in the Navy SEALs, you kind of, I think, can gauge like how hard this is gonna be. And you're like, okay, I don't know, just what did he get? Like 2 Myoplex and I don't know, some crackers, and that's it. Like,
wasn't that the one where he had his wife buy him like Ritz crackers and like yeah. So like the thing is, I thought that was interesting too, because I was like, don't you think like most people would do this research on it? But I think the idea I get of like pre-Navy SEAL Goggins was like he was a super grunt, right? He was just like didn't really like ask questions. He kind of just did it and got in his head and just did it. And so like he didn't actually have the information to be one of these like ultra marathoners or like what he should do, because he mentioned a lot like that there were people showing up. I think he used that like little Asian lady that like showed up with like the perfect, you remember that? Yeah, like with all the perfect like stuff and like the gel packs and everything, and yeah. So I think the other thing. Oh, okay. So Fruit Pastel in chat says it's because he had a phone call like that a few days before, right? Then he just said he's gonna run it. Yeah, so you had no idea that what it was going to take.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and it wasn't until really I think Badwater that he realized that he really had to prep for this kind of stuff, and he had to start like really understanding it. But that just goes to show too. I think that's even more inspiring because he's just like, yeah, like screw it, I'll try it. He wasn't like some like cyborg, right? He wasn't like some like otherworldly being. He just like went in and tried it, and it just kept going. And he learned it later. Like he learned it after his mistakes. He learned it through his mistakes.
That also goes, I don't really remember the part. I think that's in between the chapters when he and the reader of the audiobook talk. He said at some point at the gym, somebody approached him. He's like, "Oh, are you Goggins?" He's like, "Yeah." "Oh, yeah, you're so inspiring. I'm gonna run a 50-mile run eventually, right?"
Yeah.
And that eventually kind of put him off. It's like, why do you need so much time to prepare? Like, why don't you just go home and you research where the next one is and then you just go get it?
Yeah, Goggins had that guy come up to him in the gym, and the guy's like, "Yeah, I was inspired to run an ultra marathon by you." And then Goggins like, "That's great. Like, when you sign up?" He's like, "Oh, like I need to do my training first." And Goggins like, "Well, why don't you just sign up right now? Like, just sign up 2 months from now." And which is another really good suggestion, right? Is like just actually suggest sign up for the thing you're gonna do. And this is actually, so have you guys heard of Tough Mudder?
Yeah.
So I've done Tough Mudder 2 times now, and the first time I did it that's how I did it. As I literally signed up for it. I literally just like, okay, I bought the ticket. I'm like, I'm gonna be there in Tahoe, and I'm gonna do this, and then I had to train for it. Like, there's such a huge difference between that one step of commitment. It's like booking a flight versus like thinking about booking a flight. Like when you book the flight, you're going. Like, yeah, you could cancel, but are you gonna cancel really? Like you're pretty much all in.
Because it kills your ability to procrastinate that.
Yeah. So
you can't. There is no time. You have to do it right now or never.
Yeah, you have the deadline.
Yeah, exactly. And so Goggins tells this guy, he's like, "Well, why don't you just sign up right now?" Because he knows that. And the guy's like, "Yeah, I gotta like train." And Goggins knew he's full of shit. He just knew that right then, like that was not gonna. That guy was never gonna do it. and it really made him mad. It's just, yeah, it was interesting. That was cool. Would you say it's worth it to get up early then? I think it's probably, I mean, as much as I hate to say it, like, dude, I really wish I could tell you different. But there's a book called Tools of Titans, which is it's a Tim Ferriss book. And what it does is it collects, like, it's like a amalgamation of like all of these interviews that he's done about, like, from successful people. So everything from like Navy SEALs to like top athletes to like business people, billionaires, stuff like that. At this point, like, Tim Ferriss has interviewed like a ton of people, and it's all in this live podcast called The Tim Ferriss Show. So if you haven't checked it out, it's really interesting. And you could just, you can download it all free. What a world we live in, right? And so he's collected some of the most successful practices from all of those people. And he found out that out of all of them, oh man, some huge percentage of them do all the same thing. So like, it's like something like over 90% of them have some kind of meditation practice. Over 90% of them read books, and over 90% of them get up early. And so it just seems to me that like because I like one of those people that I would love to find a life hack that was like, oh yeah, man, like you can get around that one. I still see how you can do it. I think getting up early is so important if you want. It might be like one of the single most important things that you can do. And like if you do nothing else but just get up early, I think your life just gets better. It's so hard
I
though.
think it feels like it just has to do with the way people schedule their days.
Yeah.
If you do any scheduling at all, you're going to stop at like 9 o'clock. So every single hour you end up staying up past that, it's just an hour you're taking away from your morning. If you stay up till 2 a.m., it's not like you just got an extra 4 hours of like gaming done or whatever. It's like you took 4 hours out of your morning and spent it the night before.
Yeah, that's like, I think that's the harder thing actually. It's not getting up early, it's going to bed early.
Yes.
And Devin, you're kind of killing it, because for the Euro Bros, like, your stream is hard to do.
Thanks, man.
If you want to get up early.
Thanks, man. Yeah, like the 8 a.m., 9 a.m. stream time is good for Europeans, right? Yeah. So that's like, but if I start at 6, it's even better, because that's like primetime Europe / then going into the workday. And that's why, and the Twitch numbers reflect that. So my eventual goal, believe it or not, is I want to start this stream at 7 a.m. That would be killer. That's the eventual goal. So I'm going to try to go to 8 over the next like month. And then I'm going to try to knock it back to 7. Because the other reason for that is we get longer stream hours, right? Because by 1 or 2, I'm almost like 100% tied up in meetings. And so if I want to pull out like 6 hours, then I just like I have to do that. So like I'm gradually kind of like pushing it back. Let's see.
I have a bit of a technical question.
Yeah, of course.
How do you often meditate in the mornings?
So the way that I programmed it since I've been at CLG was I do it after every shower. That's so that way, like, I have kind of like a I don't know what you call it, like a catalyst, like a thing that predates it. And because I shower every day, then I make sure.
It's like in The Power of Habit, you have those. I forget what it's called, but isn't that like something they talk about in The Power of Habit?
Yeah, the idea that you're sort of attaching something to another thing that you already do. Yeah.
So yeah, that's really good, because I tend to just not be able to get over sleepiness when I try and meditate in the morning. So after a shower, it probably.
Shower's
really helpful.
the ticket, I think. Yeah, it's a super like simple thing to attach it to, just something you're doing like every day.
How long do your sessions go? Like, do you do 3 minutes, 5, 10, 20? Like, how long? 15,
and sometimes I'll do 20. I use an app called Calm, which just, and I don't play any music or do anything. I've sort of like changed my view on this like over time of like practicing it. The big thing that the big like takeaway that I got from meditation was that this is actually, for me, I don't know if it'll serve you, but like this is the really big important thing. Meditation is actually not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be relaxing. I think there's a stigma attached to it where it's like you sit down and you relax and you just kind of like chill out and you let your mind go. Meditation became a lot more effective for me, and I started to see a lot of the benefits of like what they're talking about in the studies and things like that, things like better cognition or like better emotional response to things, when I started actually like actively trying to bring my mind back to focusing, like every second that I was aware of not doing that. So that sort of like that idea that like meditation, if you think about it, and this is how I started to think about it, is more like going to the gym and doing deadlifts than it is like having a relaxing 20 minutes. Helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's exactly something I picked up while listening to Sam Harris, is that your rep, as you conceive it, is bringing your focus and just away from those thoughts and just analyzing them and noticing that they're there, and then just focusing on the breath, you know.
Yes.
That's your rep.
Yeah, so it's exactly. So it's that idea that's like meditation's so interesting because you start to realize like the stock ticker in the mind, where like you so like one of the scariest and maybe just like most like apparent things that comes up from meditating, even a little bit, is like, okay, wow, I don't control my thoughts at all. Like like it's like this crazy monkey that's on steroids that's like banging around a cage that's my mind, and I have no control over anything. Like I'll sit there and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to focus only on my breath and I'm not going to have a thought. And like 2 seconds later, it'll be like the kid that cut me off in like the salad line, like at lunch in high school that I'm like still mad about. Or like the guy that like flipped me off like that one time, or like the girl that got away, or like the soup that never was. Like, it's just, it's like, it's insane what your mind like comes up with when it's just, when it doesn't have anything to do. You could try the Alarmy app and set tasks you have to do. So I have the Alarmy app, and I just do math I just do the math like almost automatically now, and I go back. Maybe I should change it. Like I think there's different ways.
You do the math.
Yeah, I think
I do
there's
the
different.
shape.
Oh, you do the shape?
Yeah, but like for, I don't know, I think, what is it, like 50 seconds? So you're like, you shake a long time.
Oh, okay. Does that work? Does it wake you up?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, because your arm's been moving for a minute, and you're like, okay, this is annoying. And at the point where you're annoyed, you're like, okay, I might as well get up.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to change that today. That's actually super good. So what he's talking about is an app called Alarmy. And there's different ways that you can use this alarm to wake yourself up, but basically in the most obnoxious way possible. The one that I use is this one where you have to solve math problems, because I really blow at math. But then what actually happened is I got fucking good at math. And so now I actually solve the problems while I'm asleep. And I actually did that this morning, and I went back. That's why I was fucking late, as I slept like, I did like 20 minutes. I was like, okay, I solved the math problem, and I slept an extra 20 minutes. I woke up and it was like 8:30. And I was like, fuck. Okay.
One thing also is, like, if you have the ability to not use an alarm for a while, that's kind of like a good thing, because you get desensitized after a while if you don't wake up to your alarm after a few times, you know. But right now, I actually have like Jocko Willink, the psychological warfare. Like, the first track is just, you know, wake up and get out of bed. And that's literally my alarm, and it scares the shit out of me every time. It's like, who's this person yelling at me? Oh my God.
That's all. I like, so Jocko Willink's technique for getting up, that reminds me of Jocko's actual technique. I think I heard this on his podcast, but what he does is he sleeps with his wife, right? Who doesn't get up at 4:30. So he plays this metal song, and I think it's called like 100 Demons or something. Some freaking, and what it is like the first 20 or 30 seconds of the song is just kind of like a gentle guitar, and then it just goes hard, right? So he has his phone across the room, and what'll happen is if he doesn't get up, it'll go hard, and his wife will wake up and just get super pissed. So, so he has to he gets up. He's like 10 seconds later. He's like, oh shit. He has to run across the entire room, and like before this thing starts going, like before the power cords hit. It's like, I thought that was great, dude. It's so creative.
It's like a bomb. Gotta defuse the bomb.
Yeah. I always thought the most useful thing was just having your alarm not next to your bed, so you have to walk across the room and just hit it. Getting out of bed seems to be the most important part about waking up.
Yeah, that's also very helpful. True.
I think that's good. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the shaking thing, and then I'll put it in the hallway too. So I have to like run to it and then I have to shake it for like this is like it's like this is the thing about like just think about what we're talking about right now. This is fucking crazy, dude. Like the stuff that you have to go through just to get yourself up. It just takes so much mental discipline, man. Like even if I sleep, one of the things is like, okay, like, well, I'll go to bed early and like maybe that'll be better. And then I started to go to bed early, and what would happen is I'd just sleep like 9 or 10 hours, and I'd still get up late. And I was like, oh my god. So it's like it's like this ever-present struggle to just like really try to step it up.
That's exactly what happened to me this morning. I went to bed at like 9. I fell asleep 9:30. Wake up 4:40. Spend like 10 minutes getting up. I get up and I try and meditate, and I'm just like rolling around my room trying to get up off the floor.
Yeah.
And eventually I just fall asleep until 9. So
yeah, there's a lot of people that said that make sure you meditate like right when you get out of bed, because like your mind will be fresh and like you'll that never worked for me. If I meditate right before I go back to bed, I go to fucking sleep like right away. Like I'll literally fall over, and then I'll wake up on the floor 4 hours later and be like, the fuck? Like what happened? Like how did this occur? But that exact thing will happen. I'll have a day where it'll be like 9:30. I go to bed. I'm like, I got this. Like finally, dude. We're resetting my schedule. I'll wake up at 10. And be like, what? Like, why? Yeah.
There's one thing, I don't know if you ever really directly talked about it, but I think I picked it up from Steven's stream, and you talked about it, that you do reading before and after bed. So after bed in terms of right when you get up.
Yeah, so that is something that Steven, I don't know if Steven still does it, but he started doing it because he noticed I did it at his house. And I didn't even know that this was like a thing, but I was staying with Steven for like 2.5 weeks. And one of the things is like, yeah, I read a book like to go to bed, and then I'll also like read something to wake up. But this all revolves around a concept called net time. So net time means no extra time. And what it is that, so while I'm doing something else that I have to be doing anyway, can I impose an activity on that is productive? So a couple of examples. I listen. So there's a short podcast. It's called like, I don't know what they call them. They call them like just pods or something, where it's like a 16-minute podcast that comes out every day from NPR, and it's called Up First. NPR Up First is like a 16-minute summary of like what happened during the day. Actually, it's like it's less. It's 13 minutes. So what I'll do is every day when I take a shower, I'll put the phone in the bathroom and I'll start the podcast. So I know my shower is going to be a maximum of 13 minutes. I don't go longer, but because when the podcast is over, I get out. But or I try to get out before then. But that's like the length. But that's like something, an example of like, okay, well, I'm like cleaning myself and I'm like taking a shower that I need to do anyway, but I get that 13 minutes to be informed about the world, which is mostly just how Trump is fucking up things every day. Like, but it's like something like that. And then another example of that would be when I walk to work, right? So I walk to work, not drive. And I take that 17 minutes to actually listen to a podcast or an audiobook or something that's enriching, because I'm walking anyway or I'm driving anyway. So net time is like really important, and that's one of those things that I do for net time. Yeah.
Yeah, I listen to podcasts and audiobooks while doing things all the time.
Yeah, just like commuting, or if you have to like go somewhere or anything like that. Yeah, it's called MP. So I listen to. I'll tell you guys the ones that it was actually Matt that got me to do this. So I listened to like 3 of these because he got me onto them. So the first one is NPR Up First, which is like just like an overview of like what's going on. And then the second one is for tech. It's called Tech Meme: The Ride Home. Tech Meme: The Ride Home is like this like super valuable like sort of like same thing as like NPR Up First. It's like a 16-minute or 20-minute overview of what's happening in tech. And then the one that I listen to for the markets and stocks is called Market Snacks Daily, though that actually hasn't had an update since December because they're taking some time off. I don't even know when they're going to be back. It's actually really annoying me. But yeah, those are the 3 that I'll try to listen to. And usually you only get through like I'm gonna only get through Up First and like a portion of Tech Meme or whatever. But I don't know. I think about this a lot. Like on one hand, I don't know if there's a lot of value in being informed on things like this, but because we can't change it. to know about like what's going on around you, it feels like you should know. I don't know if there's any like really direct benefit. Polaris, thank you so much, appreciate it for the Prime. But yeah, the net time is what is the takeaway from this. It's like this this idea that you can make a pretty big difference in your life if you. I use Podcast Addict, Gucci Shark. You can make a pretty big difference in your life if you compound a couple of things. Like just listening to 15 minutes of podcasts per day, for example, or like listening to Up First over time gives you a breadth of knowledge. And that was the idea behind this book club, right? And why I hope a lot of you that are listening to this now, because this has been a really successful discussion, actually like join for the February one, which the February one's going to be a meme. Like all you're going to be like, why should I read this? But it'll be really good.
What is it?
I can't say
I
it
already
yet.
have the book at home.
Yeah. What did I say what it was already?
Untethered Soul? Is that it?
No, it's not. It's not that one.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
I think it's unannounced. It has to do with like the month of February. I'll give you like a hint. It's gonna be like it's like it has to do with like Valentine's type stuff. It's not gonna be things like you guys are gonna look at it and you're gonna be like, wait, why should I read this?
Oh boy, Magic Bullets, my favorite.
It's like, but it's a really really good book if you do read it. And so like I think if people give the book club a chance. Think about this, right? This is the thing that we've been saying, and we have this written down. It was actually Yi in chat who built the book club Excel sheet. So props for that, dude. You're freaking awesome.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, because it's really good. So this sign up thing, this leaderboard here, he built this whole thing. The idea of like reading 12 books in a year. Right, one book a month is not a lot, and if you really don't have the time, like you just listen to the book on Audible, and like that's not that much. Like that's not that much for a month. Like reading a book, like I think you can read like I don't even know like how many pages is David Goggins' book? We can just do the math.
364.
That's a big ass book. So it's 364 divided by 30. That's 12 pages a day.
There are people in my other book club who regularly read like 5 to 10 books a month, and most of that is audiobooks. They'll just do it on their way to work, or if they have a job where they don't have to be talking to someone, they'll always have an audiobook on, and they just blaze through books like it's nothing.
Especially if you can get acclimated to listening to things at higher speed.
Yeah, you surely can. But like the thing that I want people to think about in the book clubs is that if you just participate in this book club and you do nothing else, and I'm like hyping this up serious, like this book club is the best book club ever. But like you'll read 12 nonfiction books that have been specifically chosen for this demographic to help like develop us together. And those 12 books over the course of a year will be life-changing. Like most people stop learning after college, and I think they just don't. And this is another Goggins thing, right? Like they really don't try to do more. So if you just read these 12 books, do nothing else but read these 12 books, and you join the book club, you're gonna get a ton out of it. And if you come to these discussions like you guys have, I've learned so much more by talking about this book and like almost teaching it. That I did even reading it, right? Because like Xenon and Slacks, like Cuxier and like you guys you guys bring up things that I don't even remember that like happened in the book, and I was like, oh yeah, like that was so cool when that happened and how that affected me.
Yeah, I feel like half of the success of a book club is talking about it afterwards. You get so much out of kind of rehashing everything and getting everybody's perspective on a book than you do from just reading it. Yeah,
it's wicked cool. I'm really glad that like I think this format works. Like this, like just like sort of open format of like doing a Discord discussion chat like about this like every 2 times a month, and like I'm excited for you guys to come back and do the second one on the 31st when we talk about the book, the end of the book, and like everything that we learned.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be really cool. If Chad has any questions or any like closing comments that people want to make before we close this one out, yeah.
I kind of have a general question.
Yeah, of course.
So this is like pretty much my first self-help book I've read. Would it be fair to categorize it as opposed to something like Tidying Up, which feels like it's for someone who is in a decent place and is looking to improve aspects of their life? This feels like it's kind of a hit hard book where you're trying to like, maybe it's aimed at someone in their young adult life who needs really a kick in the ass to get going. Is that kind of a fair categorization?
I this is a super good question. Like, I have a really like push-pull relationship with self-help books and the whole like self-help industry, that there are these like books that are really clearly designed to be sort of one message that you get out of it, and that message is like valuable. So example of this book would be like The One Thing. This is a perfect example of like a typical self-help book. And if you look at it, it's got 2,500 reviews. But this book is literally about like, here, I'll you don't need to read it. I'll just do it for you right now. It's about one thing. Okay. Like, focus on the one thing. So instead of focusing on all the things, you can just focus on one thing, and then you'll get a lot more done. And that's the entire book, okay? I just saved you, how many was it? 133 pages, okay? So, like, what tilts me about self-improvement books is that most of the books are like this. They provide, like, one, maybe two, like, overarching concepts, and then it's like, and that's it. And then I'm a New York Times bestseller. Wow, you know? So like, the Goggins book, it definitely falls into that self-help category, like that, because it's like motivational and it's inspiring, but it's a different, when you've read a lot of these books and it's not like the first rodeo, it's a different sort of animal for sure. It's like, the idea of it is that you are, you're following this person's like personal account of that difficulty, and everything in this book is actionable. And there's many different takeaways. Like, so I guess like one way that I would gauge it is, I don't want to get to chapter 9 of a book and not have anything of value there. There needs to be things that are providing value constantly throughout the entire process of reading it, right? And Goggins' book accomplishes that, whereas like one of these books or something like that would not do that.
Yeah. Plus, even if your goal is basically to take away nothing from this book, it's also really just fucking entertaining to listen to his story. Like, that's it. It's just great entertainment if there's nothing for you to take away from it.
I really, really want him to win. Like when you don't know what's gonna happen, you're like, please get through Buds. Like, please make this happen. And then he's like, second time, like out from it. You're like, like it's like watching a yeah. That's such a good point. It's like, if you get nothing else out of this book, it's such a journey to see what this person's life has been.
Yeah, like running around in Buds with the broken legs, you know.
That's crazy.
Jesus, yeah.
With intent.
Yeah, that was so insane. It's like, so like what Zenon's referring to is like, at one point he breaks both of his legs. Like, he fractures both of his legs.
His shins, yeah.
Yeah. So he ties he like, what does he do? He like puts a bunch of socks.
He duct tapes.
Yeah.
He does socks.
Yeah.
Like a fat sock on top and then duct tape, right?
He wears like 6 pairs of socks, duct tapes these bitches to his boots, and then he runs in that 10 miles a day.
The best part is that he says at some point he actually really likes the fact that it's so cold and that he's wet because it numbs the pain.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like, you're just reading that at that point, and I'm like, what the fuck? This guy is insane, dude. That's crazy. There was another thing about that. So is Badwater covered in chapter 6? Is that actually?
I don't think so.
Okay.
He talks about it, but I don't think he does it till later.
Okay, yeah. So we'll talk about that next time. But there's a crazy thing he does in Badwater that's just like that, where like this guy is just like channeling stuff that other people think is uncomfortable into like his like power zone. It's so cool how he does that. Man. Any questions in chat or anything you guys want to ask about the book club before we close it up for this talk? I think this is like really successful.
All right, can I steal someone's notes?
Like book club notes?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll post I'll post my notes in the January book club chat.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so like these are just like my notes that I posted for overview stuff. It's not like very advanced, but how many hours of this book is on Audible. So I think it's about 13 hours. But the thing, Hephaestus, about this book on Audible, and if you're giving it a read, why I encourage everybody to go through it on Audible. And if you really like this book, David Goggins himself actually goes onto the Audible and adds to every chapter. So at the end of every chapter, he comes on and he actually adds to it with the ghostwriter who's reading the book. So it's super, super cool. It's like, actually he does it more than every chapter. Like it's probably like 3 or 4 times in every chapter he interjects it. He's like, here's like an extra thing about that story. But you also get, I also learned today, you also get some things out of the book that you don't get out of the Audible. So there's some pictures in the book, right? Like that you get, that you don't get in the Audible version. So both versions of the book are, both versions of the book are really valuable. Mm-hmm.
So maybe just as feedback for you, like I have been really enjoying like the whole experience of the book club. It hasn't been running for that long, right? I mean, this is only the second book, but I also know that you don't like to recommend books, but of all the not recommended books that you mentioned, I read pretty much all of them, and it's been really great. So what was there, like the Unfuck Yourself book and the Tidying book and Can't Hurt Me and Untethered Soul. Haven't gotten around to it yet, but yeah, it might come up this year, so I'll keep that for later.
Unfuck Yourself is a great book if you're actually fucked. So it's such a funny thing too, because normally I'm so careful with the books that I read because I've read so many that I don't want to get caught in that same thing I was telling Yi about, where it was like that idea of reading like a book about one thing. And so at this point, so the way that I discovered that book was basically like, okay, I'm just coming out of a 13-year relationship. This is in September 2018, so not that long ago, and I'm completely screwed. I mean, like the relationship ended terribly. Like everything was horrible. I was wicked depressed. Like everything, I was at my worst state ever. And that was when I told Steven about it. Destiny, for everyone knows who he is. Yeah. So I told Steven about it, and Steven was like, dude, fuck that. Like come to Nebraska, like hang out with me for a couple of weeks and just like chill out. And I was like, I don't know, like maybe I should like stay here or whatever. And then it was actually Dan. Dan was like, dude, go, like, stop being an idiot. Like actually go, like you need to get out of there. Because it was just such a toxic environment. And I did. And while I was in the airport, I was in, I landed in Omaha, and I was walking by one of the bookstores in the airport, and I saw that book on display. And I was just like, how to unfuck yourself. And I was like, well, I'm totally fucked. So I guess I'll pick this book up. And I read through the whole book at Steven's house, and it was actually so good. This is the book we're referring to. I'll pull it up. So surprisingly really good book. Yeah, usually I don't recommend general books just because I do think that books are a very personal experience. It like depending on like the kind of like time that you're choosing to like read the book and like the kind of like person you are at that moment. But yeah, if you read the books that I don't recommend, they're actually like really good books, but I just don't want to, I don't want someone to like come back and be like, oh, I fucking hated that. It did nothing for me, like, yeah, it was like, that's, so I try not to do that.
And maybe to even go a little bit further, I mean, this doesn't really have anything to do with the book, but it was just so crazy for me that like all this happened to you, and basically all the same stuff happened to me on the on like the other end of the world, like long-term relationship breaking down, and you're like changing places, and I changed places, and it was like you just focus on being a badass and self-improvement and workouts and the clothing, and everything happened at the same time. So it was really interesting to see someone else go through the exact same struggle and how they deal with it, and to see that nobody really is super prepared for this, no matter what your background is, right?
That's that was super awesome. Crazy, man. Like, you know what was so crazy was like lots of people in the community, like that must have just been like the month of like ending like it was like the Chinese zodiac symbol for like ending like long-term relationships, because like literally like 10 people came up in chat and were like, dude, I just got over like a 10-12 year relationship like last month, like either like she cheated on me, or like there was like some kind of like crazy thing that happened, or like the families didn't work out, or like she owns the house now and like I'm out, like it's just some crazy stuff. So yeah, like one of the people in our community where that went through was Aolinks, right? Like Aolinks is like a long-term member of the community, was trying to build a business on Amazon, and he actually came on the show and did like a couple hours like talking about it, and like he had like a very similar thing, and yeah, like the advice that I had given at that time, or what I realized was, I had to focus completely on myself through that entire process, right? Because if I had focused on her, or I'd focused on anything else that was going on, I would have just like lost my mind. Like, you have to focus on your own improvement, and the person that I am today over who I was then is infinitely better. And I'm with a girl that's like a million times more amazing, and like everything is legit, right? Like in a life that I can't possibly imagine, like being better. I mean, like the people that I'm surrounded with now, right? Like my business partner and Sevidus, and like the people at Nerd Fusion and Seattle in general is such a huge positive. And what I think about is like, oh man, and actually, to bring it back to the book, dude, David Goggins mentions this about a Hell Week, is when you go through an experience that's that difficult, it's almost as if you live like an entire lifetime in like a short amount of time. So the entire time that I was going to Seattle, the breakup happened. I left my house. I left everything that I owned, and I came up to Seattle. That entire time frame was like 2 weeks, but it feels like I lived like months and months of like time in between that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because sleep is also down to the minimum in such times. Like you basically don't sleep, and if you sleep, then you're kind of half awake anyway.
Yeah, it was like there were so many lessons that were packed into it that, and I think that maybe like one of the things that to bring it back to Goggins, I think that one of the things that he does to sort of like train his mind in this way is he continuously does these physical activities that are so hard, because he's trying to push himself back into that zone of uncomfort so he can have those lessons. Yeah, cool stuff, man. All right, let's see. Yeah, I think we should I think that's pretty much good. We're gonna do another discussion January 31st for the end of the book. Everybody is welcome to start the book now. You still have a lot of time. You have like half a month to catch up on Audible or even read it. If you read just 24 pages a day, you would be done with the book by the 31st to end, or you could just get through what you want to get through and participate in the next discussion. Dudes, thank you so much for coming out. It's always a little bit scary when I start one of these channels and I'm like, is anyone going to show up? Like, I'm not sure. So you guys being the pioneers for this, I really appreciate you coming out. This is, the discussion's been Yee, who's also served as our moderator in chat for the Subnautica runs, and Cooksier. I might have that wrong, but I think that's right.
You got it.
Got it. And Slacks and Xenon Blue were the ones that came out. So claps in chat for these dudes coming out to chat and participate in the book club. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, super cool.
Thanks for hosting.
Thank you.
100%, man. Okay. I'm going to jump into this channel, so I'll catch you guys later.
Have fun. Good luck, everyone.
See ya.